She called the cops on me for parking on my own driveway. Two cruisers rolled up at 6:47 a.m., light bars flickering in the pale Colorado morning, while my muddy F-250 sat squarely on my concrete pad, 10 feet from the street, entirely on my property. And there was Connie Riedel on the sidewalk, arms folded, smirk locked in place like she'd already won. The first deputy swung his door open, and before his boots hit the pavement, Connie jabbed a finger toward me. "I pay your salary. Arrest him." Right then, I understood this wasn't about a dirty truck or community standards. This was about power, about a small-time neighborhood tyrant who'd gotten used to pushing people around. The only thing she didn't factor into her calculus? I'm a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, 23 years in intelligence dismantling threats far more dangerous than a suburban HOA bully. Before I tell you how it ended, drop your story in the comments. Have you tangled with an HOA bully or a neighborhood busybody? Where are you watching from? I read every comment, and next week I'm featuring the toughest HOA harassment story with a practical plan to fight back. My name's Vance Hartwick, U.S. Army Intelligence, 23 years active duty. I just moved into reserve status 1 weekend a month to keep the edge sharp. After 2 decades of base housing, packing every 18 months, and waking to the sound of mortars in other time zones, I finally bought land that felt like mine. 4 acres in Pinewood Estates, Colorado. Pines, space, quiet. My wife, Marina, an ICU nurse who's tougher than half the soldiers I've commanded, was thrilled. Our son was at West Point, our daughter studying engineering at CU Boulder. This chapter was supposed to be the peaceful one. Most mornings I'd take my stainless percolator outside, breathe in pine resin mixed with faint diesel off my truck, and listen to frost crackle under my boots. Clean air, not dust or burning oil. It felt like a promise. It stayed perfect about 8 weeks. Pinewood Estates is 47 homes tucked into the hills outside Colorado Springs. Retirees, young families, and a voluntary HOA that mostly plans block parties and trades opinions about mailbox colors. And then there's Connie, 52, vice president of the association, married to Garrett, a real estate attorney who's never home. Biggest house on the corner lot. Lawn so manicured it looks stapled to the ground, and a fertilizer smell that could burn your sinuses. She patrols in evening heels that click on asphalt like a countdown. Click, click, click. She wraps everything in property values and community standards. But if you listen long enough, you hear the code. Transient Renters is the Hispanic family 3 doors down. A veteran's work van becomes clutter. 2 weeks after we moved in, Connie knocked. "Welcome," she chirped, handing me a packet, one section highlighted in neon yellow. "Vehicles over. 6,000 Dalles Biche should be garaged or parked behind fence line. My F-250 is 6,400. I looked up. She was still smiling. "Just a courtesy reminder. We like to keep things tidy." I closed the door, and from the kitchen, Marina said, "She's going to be a problem." "Maybe," I said. "Not maybe," she answered, pouring tea. "She knows people. She was right." 12 weeks in, I dragged home from a reserve weekend, dog-tired, covered in field mud after 36 hours running exercises and 0 sleep. The truck looked like it had crawled through a war zone. I parked it on my driveway, my concrete pad, and planned to wash it after breakfast. Sunday, 7 a.m., Connie knocked. I opened the door mid-sip. "That truck needs to be moved immediately," she snapped, pointing at it like it was a carcass. "It's an eyesore." "It's on my property, ma'am," I said even. "I'll wash it this afternoon." Her face went red, hard red. "We'll see about that," she said, and clicked away double time. "Told you," Marina called. Monday at 6:45 a.m., I see the flashers. 2 sheriff's units idled at the curb. Connie stood with her arms folded, directing like an air controller. The deputies were pros, mid-30s. The tall one, Kraus, spotted the Army decal on my rear window, took in my PT shirt, and eased a fraction. "Morning, sir. Got a call about an illegally parked vehicle blocking access." "On my driveway," I said, friendly but firm. He looked at the wide, empty street, then at Connie. "Ma'am, the vehicle is entirely on private property. There's no violation here." "I want a report filed," she shot back. "He's violating covenant standards. This is a voluntary community, and he's refusing to comply." Kraus handed me an incident card. We're clearing this unfounded. Have a good day. As they pulled off, adrenaline prickled the base of my skull like it used to before a mission briefing. Intel was about to get complicated. That evening, the HOA president, Dale Peaton, retired insurance adjuster, 68, a man who'd apologized for winning at poker, emailed the entire street, courtesy reminder about vehicle placement and voluntary compliance. Translation: Connie's building a paper trail. Marina leaned over my shoulder. She's documenting you. I replied, all with a calm, factual note. My property survey shows no violation. There's no enforceable covenant in county records. Attached a plat map with the property lines. For a moment, with chamomile and honey in the air and the smell of wood smoke drifting down the street, I let myself imagine that would be the end. It wasn't. Next morning, I found an orange traffic cone perched at the edge of my driveway. Not mine. Security footage showed a silver Lexus pulling up at 11:00 p.m., Garrett stepping out, placing the cone, and driving off in 40 seconds. I picked it up, walked 3 houses down, and set it gently on Connie's pristine porch with a note. Believe you dropped this. V. You're poking the bear, Marina said when I came back. Bear poked first. That afternoon, a county code enforcement truck pulled in. Raul Espinosa, mid-40s in a polo, had the look of a man who's seen every dumb neighbor feud. Complain about unpermitted grading. You move any dirt? Nope. Bought it as his 8 months ago. He checked slopes, drainage, property line, then shook his head. 5th bogus call from this street this month. Somebody's got too much time. I poured him coffee on the porch, and he gave me the best $15 advice I'll ever get. You can request your own property inspection history from the county. Shows every complaint against your address. Guys in your spot, use it to prove harassment patterns. Helps if things go sideways. I filed it that afternoon. What I didn't know then was how much worse it would get, or how useful that report would be. Within days, unfamiliar cars slowed in front of my house. People stared. Connie had been door to door with a petition, Voluntary Covenant Enforcement Initiative, and a sales pitch about protecting property values. She had 11 signatures out of 47 homes, mostly retirees, who signed whatever paper handed to them alongside a smile and vague talk about keeping the neighborhood beautiful. Then the anonymous letter arrived. No stamp, no return address. Military types think they're above the rules. Sell and move to base housing where you belong. Times New Roman, fresh paper, lavender hand lotion, expensive and cloying, the same scent that announces Connie 5 seconds before she enters a room. Marina found it after an ICU night shift. Confusion flooded her face, then fury. I slid the note into a plastic sleeve between the cone photos and the code complaint. 3 days later, Connie took it up a notch. Marina's car got a bogus parking ticket during her shift. Dismissed in 48 hours, but the hassle landed hard after losing 2 patients that night. Then an anonymous call to her hospital accused an ICU nurse on nights of showing up intoxicated. They described Marina's unit, her schedule, even the color of her car. Policy required an investigation. She was cleared within hours, a clean blood draw, supervisor statements. But being pulled off the floor in front of colleagues left her shaken. She went after my job, Marina said, voice small and burning. That was the switch. Husband mode off. Operator mode on. I called an old JAG friend, Captain Lynette Torin. She listened, then said, if she made false reports to your wife's employer, that's tortious interference. You could sue her into next Tuesday. But before scorched earth, document everything and file an official harassment report with the sheriff. Courts love timelines. Deputy Kraus took my statement seriously this time. He flagged it in their system. Lynette added one, more angle. HOAs registered as non-profits have to open their books in Colorado. Costs $50 in 2 weeks. I've seen board members treat association funds like a piggy bank. If there's funny money, it's leverage. I filed that request the same day. Best investment since body armor before my first deployment. 2 weeks later, Connie forced an emergency HOA meeting with a 24-hour notice. Clearly engineered so most people couldn't attend. 19 showed up anyway, curiosity outweighing inconvenience. Connie dimmed the lights and clicked through a slideshow. My truck from every angle, close-ups of survey stakes, even photos of my security cameras. She pitched voluntary fines of $100 per violation and weekend private security patrols, $40 per household per month. She'd compiled bar graphs and appraisal trends like she was briefing investors, not neighbors. Halfway through, a voice in the middle row cut through her talking points. Marcus Tillman, early 50s, mailman. Connie, this feels personal. His truck is parked on his property. Why do we care? She didn't even hesitate. Because people like him don't respect community standards. The phrase landed like a grenade. People like him sucked all the air out of the room. Eyebrows shot up. Dale cleared his throat and practically begged to table the discussion. Connie glared at me. You think you're untouchable? I smiled and walked out into a cool evening that smelled like fresh asphalt and cut grass. That night, Marina and I spread the HOA financial packet across our kitchen table. 18 months of expenses printed on office paper and stapled like a high school project. It took 5 minutes to find the rot. $8,400 in administrative expenses with vague receipts. Office supplies, consulting, outreach. One line item was neon obvious, $200 to Garrett's law firm for covenant review. Her husband billing the HOA to review documents he should have looked at as a volunteer spouse, for free. Marina's ICU budget eyes didn't miss a thing. This is self-dealing, she said. Nonprofits can't pay board members or their families without disclosure. And a vote. Where's the vote? There was nothing in the minutes. A quick search confirmed Colorado law. Any benefit to a board member or their family requires disclosure, and a conflict of interest vote noted in the minutes. No note, no vote. Problem. The next morning, Marcus caught me at the mailbox. She's run off 3 families in 9 years, he said. Noise complaints, maintenance complaints, always them, never the white folks. She called animal control on the Hispanic family over their beagle, called the veterans' work van abandoned 3 times until the sheriff told her to stop. He looked me dead in the eye. If you're building something to push back, count me in. I couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m., it was me, my laptop, and public records, tax records, court filings, property data. Hunting data is hunting data, whether it's overseas or in El Paso County. Connie and Garrett's property profile came up. I stared. $47,000 in unpaid property tax liens over 2 years. Foreclosure paused only because of a hardship application filed 6 months earlier. Court records showed a malpractice settlement. Garrett's firm had paid $230,000 to a client 8 months ago. The whole picture snapped into focus. Connie's crusade wasn't about standards. It was projection. She was unraveling and needed the neighborhood to believe the collapse was someone else's fault. My truck, a veteran's van, a trampoline, a flagpole. I'd seen it before in uniform. Petty warlords making noise while their foundations rotted. Marina came down in her robe, glass of water in hand. You found something, she said, not asking. She's broke, I said, turning the laptop. House underwater, firm bleeding. She's 6 months from losing everything. Are you going to use it? Marina's eyes held something like pity, because even when someone tries to burn us down, she sees the human. I shook my head. Not directly. She'll overplay her hand on her own. The next week, subtle pressure. Truck parked prominently, washed and waxed, gleaming in the sun like a statement. I'm not moving. A flagpole installed properly and flown with ceremony. A decorative boulder, legally placed, nestled neatly at the property line, perfectly framed in Connie's kitchen window. All lawful, all within code, all designed to assert one fact: this is my land. Within days, Connie paced her driveway, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp enough to carry across the street. Marina watched me grill and said, "You're poking the bear." I'm giving her rope. 2 days later, Marcus knocked with a 6-pack and a grim look. Yolanda and Gil want in, he said. Yolanda, an elementary school teacher, had a county inspector brought to her backyard because Connie filed her trampoline as an attractive nuisance. Cleared in minutes, scared for days. Gil, 71, hung a memorial flag for fallen friends. Connie invented a height rule and tried to force him to take it down. We met at my kitchen table, 4 neighbors and a pot of coffee. The pattern was obvious. Connie's targets weren't random. She went after families who didn't match her country club picture. Blue-collar jobs, brown skin, old cars. She'd turned a voluntary HOA into a weapon. "We don't break rules," I said. "We use them." I laid the numbers out. $8,400 in vague expenses, $1,200 to Garrett. Faces shifted from anger to hope. Because for the first time, it wasn't just about surviving Connie. It was about holding her accountable. We built the plan like an op order. Objective, resources, execution. First, Marcus filed a formal complaint with the Secretary of State's nonprofit division. Any self-dealing, paying a board member or family without disclosure or a vote is grounds for removal and potential prosecution. He signed it, kept my name off the initial salvo. Second, we petitioned for a special HOA meeting. The bylaws allow it if 20% of homeowners request it. We needed 10 signatures. By dinner, we had 11. Third, we prepped a presentation, facts only. Timelines, receipts, laws, no name calling, no heat. Fourth, we invited media. Yolanda called a reporter at the Pinewood Gazette she knew from a school fundraiser. I requested a sheriff's presence for security, which was code for, "We want an official witness." A week before the meeting, I walked out for the paper at dawn and stopped cold. My truck was sitting low, all 4 tires slashed. The cuts were clean, purposeful, about $800 of anger. I pulled camera footage, 2:17 a.m. A hooded figure kept their head down, worked fast, and ducked away. Height and gait looked familiar. Too familiar. But the face was hidden. They knew my camera angles. Kraus filed the report, jaw tight. "Without a clear face shot, we can't charge anyone. Keep your documentation. If she escalates again, and I think she will, you'll have what you need for a restraining order or worse." Insurance covered the rubber. The point wasn't money, it was escalation. Panic makes bullies mistake-prone. The smear hit next. A fresh Facebook profile, concerned Pinewood resident, posted in the neighborhood group that a new neighbor was an aggressive, military type, surveilling children and threatening families. Vague enough to dodge a libel suit, specific enough that everyone knew it meant me. Within hours, a handful of people shared it. Yolanda screenshotted everything before the post disappeared and sent them my way. My son called from West Point, voice steady with a hint of worry. "Dad, I'm seeing posts about you. You always told me to document and let the truth talk. Are you doing that?" "I am," I said. "You'll see how this plays out." 3 days before the meeting, Dale emailed at 10 p.m. "Meeting postponed indefinitely. Legal concerns." I called him. "Dale, the bylaws require a special meeting within 14 days of a valid petition from 20% of homeowners. We gave you 23%. If you don't hold it, any homeowner can sue the board for breach of fiduciary duty, and I have an attorney ready to file." Bluff. He didn't need to know that. He caved. Thursday, 7 p.m. Notice sent at 8:10 a.m. By 6:30. Thursday night, the community center lot was full. 41 of 47 homeowners had RSVP'd. Inside smelled like burnt coffee and fresh floor wax. Metal chairs creaked. Phones came out. People settled in with that quiet charge you feel before something important. Connie sat up front in a navy blazer and pearls, a neat stack of packets on thick paper with color-coded tabs. A magician's deck for someone who sensed the trick was already exposed. Garrett sat beside her, glossy suit, and the look of a man who wanted to vanish into his phone. Deputy Kraus stood in the back by the exit. The reporter, Jenna, from the Gazette, sat with a recorder on her chair. Dale called it to order, hands trembling on the gavel. "Miss Riddell, as the petitioner, you have the floor." Connie launched into a speech about volunteer board members who work tirelessly, about newcomers who don't understand our values. It was polished and brittle. The room listened politely. Marcus didn't. He stood. "Point of order," he said, voice steady. "She's lying, and everyone here knows it." The room rippled with gasps and whispers. Dale panicked. Connie flushed pale, then red. "Excuse me, I am a volunteer who—" "You've volunteered to harass people who don't fit your picture of this neighborhood," Marcus cut in. "And we're done." Dale looked at me. Mr. Hartwick, you called this meeting. The floor is yours. I carried a box to the front, passed out spiral-bound dossiers row by row, pages flipped. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Vance Hartwick, U.S. Army Reserve, I said, standing at relaxed parade rest. I moved here 8 months ago for peace and quiet. Instead, my family has been harassed, my wife's job threatened, and my property vandalized, all because one person decided my truck and my background offender standards. I clicked the remote. The first slide, timeline, lit the wall. The welcome packet with the highlighted section, false police calls, code complaints, the anonymous letter, the hospital smear, photos of 4-slash tires, the fake Facebook posts, facts in order, no heat. This is not about community standards, I said. It's about abuse of power. Next slide, the money. $8,400 in undefined administrative expenses, and $2,200 paid to Garrett's firm with no conflict of interest vote in the minutes. Colorado law in black and white. Board members must disclose and recuse from votes that benefit them or their family. Voters must approve. None of that happened. Connie whispered, slander, and tugged Garrett's sleeve. He didn't look up. Connie, he said quietly, stop talking. I held up a hand and the room settled. I filed a complaint with the Secretary of State this morning, I said. They'll audit. But tonight isn't about the state. It's about us. You elected a board to serve this community. Instead, they've served themselves and used a voluntary HOA as a weapon. I turned from the screen to faces I'd only nodded to at mailboxes. Marcus has been harassed. Gil, harassed. Yolanda, harassed. The Montoya family on Spruce Street, harassed. It stops tonight. I move to recall the board, effective immediately, with new elections in 30 days. A woman 3 rows back raised her hand. Second? Dale stumbled through the procedural steps like a man walking a minefield. Discussion? None. Vote? 38 hands rose. Connie grabbed her purse and walked out. The metal door's echo sounded like a gavel. Done. Outside, under the streetlights, Jenna asked what I wanted people to take from the meeting. HOAs aren't inherently bad, I said, but unchecked power corrupts. When board members use rules as weapons, homeowners need to get involved. Ask questions. Demand transparency. She asked about my military background. This wasn't about rank. It was about doing what's right and not backing down when someone tries to bully you into silence. The new board was elected the following week. Neighbors I barely knew showing up to vote like it mattered. Marcus won president. Yolanda took treasurer. Gil accepted secretary. The very people Connie had targeted were now in charge of the organization she'd used as a cudgel. They asked me to run. I told them I wanted exactly what I'd wanted 8 months earlier. Coffee on my porch and a sunrise without drama. Marcus laughed and said that's why they wanted me. He understood when I said no. 3 weeks later, the state audit landed. It confirmed everything. $8,400 in undocumented expenses, $200 paid to a board member's spouse without a vote, and a recommendation that the past board reimburse the association and that the case be sent to prosecutors for possible fraud. 2 days after the report posted, Connie and Garrett listed their house. They were gone within 60 days, $30,000 under asking, just to get out before foreclosure resumed. I never filed charges for the tires or the letter. It was over, and I didn't need to grind it. Kraus told me later the harassment report I'd filed had flagged Connie in their system. Any similar pattern in her next neighborhood would pop under a background check. Sometimes a paper trail is more powerful than a courtroom. The new board's first acts were about community, not control. They scrapped voluntary fines, held quarterly barbecues, started a holiday lights night where the only rule was joy, and created a real neighborhood watch focused on safety instead of surveilling landscaping. Marcus proposed the Pinewood Unity Scholarship, $500 for a local student pursuing public service, teaching, nursing, military, social work. The first pancake breakfast raised $2,100 in a morning. I flipped pancakes. Marina poured coffee. Kids kicked a soccer ball in the field behind the community center. It felt like a neighborhood. Finally, 2 years later, Yolanda's daughter won the scholarship and enrolled in nursing school. Watching Yolanda cry, happy tears reminded me why any of this mattered. Not because I needed to win a fight with a petty tyrant. Because good people deserve to live without fear on their own street. 6 months after the dust settled, our son graduated from West Point. After the ceremony, he pulled me aside. "Remember when that fake Facebook post smeared you?" he said. "You told me courage isn't loud. It's methodical and patient and lets the truth talk." I think about that every day. We hosted dinner that night. Marina's cooking, our daughter home, Marcus and his family, Gil, Yolanda and her daughter, and the young couple who'd bought Connie's house. They'd already asked to join Neighborhood Watch. My truck sat in the driveway washed and waxed. Not because it bothered anyone, but because I felt like it. It was just a truck again, exactly as it should have been from day one. After everyone left, Marina and I cleaned up, and she asked if I meant what I'd told the reporter, that anyone could do what I did. I dried a plate, thought about it, and nodded. The only special thing I brought was stubbornness and a filing system. Everything else, public records, bylaws, documentation, is available to anyone willing to do the homework. She smiled. "You know Gil's friend down the road? Developers trying to use eminent domain to push him off his land." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" She laughed. "You can't help yourself, can you? Somebody has to stand up to bullies. Might as well be someone who knows how. If you're stuck in your own HOA nightmare, board member acting like a sheriff, a neighbor who files complaints over everything, a petty tyrant who uses rules as weapons, drop your story in the comments. I'm featuring the toughest case next week with a step-by-step plan. If you like watching bullies get outsmarted by quiet professionalism, hit subscribe. I've got more real stories of HOA abuse, property rights, Colorado HOA law in action, and neighborhood tyrants getting dismantled every Tuesday. Remember, document everything, know your rights, and let the facts do the talking. Quiet professionalism beats loud tyranny every single time.